If you're planning a Northern Lights cruise, here's the truth. You might not see them in the way that you expect, or even at all. So in this video, I'm sharing my 10 must-knows to give you the best chance of seeing the Northern Lights and enjoying your cruise either way. And the last one, it could make or break your entire trip. Right, let's start with one of the biggest factors in whether you see the Aurora Borealis at all, your itinerary. Not all Northern Lights cruises are equal, and your itinerary is one of the biggest factors in your chances of seeing them. Broadly speaking, the further north you go, the better your chances. At the top end, you've got what I'd like to call deep Arctic itineraries, places like Tromsø, Alta, Narvik, well inside the Arctic Circle. Then you've got your more mid-range routes, perhaps crossing the Arctic Circle or visiting places like the Lofoten Islands. And then further south, Norwegian fjord itineraries or Iceland, where sightings are still possible but less probable. The other key factor is cloud cover, which is actually the #1 reason why people don't see the lights, and why it can be worth considering a port excursion, which doesn't so much chase the lights, but chases clear skies. Also, if you're cruising from the UK, you're travelling a long way, so these tend to be longer cruises, often 12 nights or more. So bear in mind that usually means a high number of sea days. Our recent 13-night Northern Lights cruise had 7 sea days. When to go? Northern Lights cruises run through the winter months because you need darkness to see them. But when you go in the winter makes a big difference to the experience. If you go in the depths of winter, say November through January, you can be dealing with very little daylight, or indeed 24-hour darkness this far north. That can affect your sleep, your energy, and your overall sense of well-being. We travelled in March, and there was actually a really nice balance. Plenty of daylight to enjoy the scenery and explore ports, but still dark enough at night for viewing. So, for most people, I'd say February to March is a good sweet spot. It's also worth knowing that the Northern Lights follow the sun's activity cycle, which peaks roughly every 11 years. We're currently just past the 2024-25 peak, so aurora activity is still relatively strong now, but will gradually decline over the coming years. That said, even at the low point of the cycle, you can still get strong displays. Nevertheless, if this is something you're thinking about, now is a particularly good time to go. The weather. You're going to the Arctic Circle in winter. This is not the Mediterranean in summer. It will be cold. And while you're waiting for the lights, you may be standing outside for a long time without moving very much. So layers are absolutely key. You may also get rough seas. We certainly did. We got a hurricane. So take care around the ship. Use the handrails and be prepared for the possibility of seasickness. And something that really stood out on our cruise, icy decks. I mean really icy. Thick, crusted ice that was absolutely treacherous, and a lot of people were very worried about slipping. So, do be careful. Be flexible. The Northern Lights are a natural phenomenon. Obviously, they don't operate to a schedule. They can appear and disappear very quickly. And your ship, unlike you, is not flexible. Itineraries are fixed. Ports are booked years in advance. The ship can't go chasing clear skies. So that leaves it up to you. You need to be flexible with your plans, your timing, and even your sleep. And that leads directly to my next must-know. Be agile. When the lights appear, you need to move, and fast. On one occasion, it took us about 10 minutes to get dressed and up on deck. And by the time we got there, the lights had mostly gone. So, have clothes ready by the bed. Know your quickest route to the deck, and be prepared to get up in the middle of the night. If your ship has an alert system, use it. On our cruise, the bridge would notify passengers via a TV channel, so we kept that on overnight with the volume up, which meant we could be woken if something was spotted. Once you're outside, do move around. The lights can shift position, parts of the ship can block your view, and moving around helps to keep you warm too. And despite all that, we still nearly missed one of our best sightings, which is where my next must-know comes in. Book a balcony cabin if you can stretch to it. For us, this made a real difference. On one of our best sightings, I happened to step out onto the balcony before heading up on deck. And there they were, right in front of us. And I'll show these images in my next must-know. Now, you don't get a full 360-degree view, obviously, and you can't see directly overhead. But what you do get is immediacy. You can step outside in seconds, and where the lights are fleeting, that can make all the difference. If you can, I'd also suggest choosing a balcony on one of the higher accommodation decks, so you're closer to the open viewing areas and can get there quicker. Before I move on, if you're finding this helpful, do consider subscribing. Curious to Travel brings immersive journeys like our full Northern Lights adventure, which is linked here, alongside practical travel advice like this. Make friends with your camera. Now, I'm not a camera expert, far from it, but I'll share what worked for us. Most people will be using their phones, and modern phones nowadays have excellent cameras. We were advised to use night mode, and that worked well. One thing to be aware of though is that photos tend to come out much better than video, and also your camera will often pick up more colour than your eyes can see. On deck you might have light pollution from the ship or from the port of your berth, and we also found smoke from the funnel could get in the way too. The moon is another source of light, although interestingly we often found its added atmosphere and dynamism to our photos. We also tried time-lapse and it didn't really work. You could only just make out the weakest aurora. You might consider a tripod for stability, though that's obviously more useful in port than at sea. A few practical points. The cold drains your battery quickly. Keep your device charged, consider a power bank, and keep your lens clean. Because, as I said, when the lights appear, you need to move fast. Here's an example of some video footage we captured from the top decks. And to show how photos can be higher quality, here are two images we took from our balcony in the middle of the night as we sailed through the fjords away from Tromsø. Health and well-being. This is a more demanding type of cruise than you might expect. For example, sleep can be disrupted. You might be waking in the night. You might be sleeping lightly in anticipation of waking. And if you do see them, like me, the adrenaline can make it hard to get back to sleep. So be kind to yourself, rest if you need to, and try to nurture a good sleep routine after it's been disrupted. If you feel seasick, fresh air and looking to the horizon can help, or going to bed, closing your eyes and lying still. Bring seasickness medications, wristbands, patches, and the medical centre can help if needed. Also, the cold can be quite intense. Lip balm and moisturiser are your friends, and do be careful on the snow and ice. And because you're spending time indoors with many other passengers, it's worth keeping up your hand washing routine too, especially around meal times. Before I move on to what to pack, if you know somebody who's planning a Northern Lights cruise, please do consider sharing this video with them. Right, let's get the suitcases out. Packing. A few things I wish I'd brought or was very glad that I did. Hand warmers. These would have been a lifesaver. It was sub-zero on deck and I couldn't wear gloves while I was filming. Proper waterproof shoes or boots with a good grip. Layers. Thermal underwear, hat and a warm, lightweight, waterproof coat. Seasickness remedies. Lip balm and moisturiser. A power bank. Sunglasses. The Arctic sun can be surprisingly bright, especially reflecting off snow, and actually a bit of sun cream for your face isn't a bad idea either. And yes, swimwear. A hot tub or spa can be very welcome after time out in the cold. On money, I didn't bring Norwegian kroner, I just used a credit card. Most cards charge around 3% foreign exchange fee, but there are some, like the Halifax Clarity, that don't. If I've missed anything obvious, do let me know in the comments, it'll help everyone watching. Okay, on to the most important must know. Manage your expectations. I think this is huge. As you've heard, sighting the Northern Lights depends on several things. How far north you are, the cloud cover, solar activity, and a degree of luck. And the reality is, you might not see them. Even if they do appear during your cruise, you might be asleep, you might be in the wrong place, or you might miss them by minutes. That happened to us. We were at dinner during one of the best displays. Cunard doesn't announce them during mealtimes, so we were oblivious. By the time we got outside, they'd mostly gone. And even when you do see them, they might not be what you expect. Most of the time, what you'll see is a green glow, sometimes faint and sometimes gently moving. Those dramatic, multicoloured displays you see in photos are real, but they're much rarer and often far more visible on camera than to the naked eye. On deck, we often saw people holding up their phones, not to film, but simply because the phone screen made the lights easier to see. Now, I know that might sound a bit disappointing, but here's the thing. A Northern Lights cruise is still an extraordinary experience, with or without the lights. For me, the Arctic landscapes, the storms and snow in winter, Tromsø setting, Ålesund in the snow, Narvik's history, the silent fjords after rough seas, all of that made the trip unforgettable. So, before you book, just ask yourself, would I still enjoy this trip even if I didn't see the Northern Lights? Because if the answer is yes, you're setting yourself up for a great experience. And if you don't, you've got an excuse to book another one. If you have any questions or your own tips or experiences, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And if you'd like to see our full Northern Lights voyage on Cunard's Queen Victoria, storms, blizzards and everything in between, you can watch that here. I'm David from Curious to Travel. Stay curious!